Hey, my name is Tim Buell. I'm a drummer living here in Nashville, Tennessee, and today we're going to talk about how to make drum set exercise notation sheets in Finale. Now, this is the 7th installment of Finale for Drummers, but in a previous episode, GSA Drums actually wrote a comment and said, hey, how did you make that sheet that you showed in one of the screenshots? So I wanted to walk you all through because there's some formatting stuff that making these worksheets can sometimes present kind of how's the best way to do this. So we're just going to walk through and make, start from scratch, make a drum set worksheet, and I'm going to show you a lot of things along the way. I think it'll be helpful. If you have any questions at all, put them in the comments. Let's jump into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my drum set template. If you want to download this exact notation file, you can do that in the description below. I created this template in the Finale for Drummers part 1 of this series. So if you want to watch that, go back, watch that. You'll see how I created this. So if you have any questions about this template specifically, you can actually see that in part 1 of this series. So we're going to start here. You'll see we have a drum set notation legend. We have some other text and stuff. So the first thing that I'm going to do is the first thing I always do. I'm going to save my document. So now that I've saved my document, I'm going to delete what I don't need here. You can go to the text tool and you can, highlight these text boxes, or you can double hit escape key and that brings up your selection tool. And I'm just going to select this text, delete it, don't need it. So since we're making an exercise worksheet, the next thing I'm going to do is I don't need measure numbers because these are going to be exercises that we're going to label separately anyway. So I'm going to highlight one measure with the measure tool selected, highlight all the measures by hitting Control A. So the measure tool selected, I select one measure, hit Control A, it selects all of them. And then I'm going to double click the measure. And right here, include measure numbering, I'm going to turn that off. And you'll see my measures are now gone. That's the first step. We're not going to need it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make, let's make 2 flam exercises. And I want them to be spaced, one exercise, a little bit of space, and then one exercise. So the way that I do that is I'm going to use this measure here and this measure here for my exercise. So I don't need this measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the staff tool, and you can either right click and hit hide staff, or I like to just hit H and it hides that measure. The next thing that I do is, since this is going to be an exercise and this is going to be an exercise, I'm going to right click this and select solid bar line. I think a solid bar line for these exercises just feels a little more intentional. So that's the start. Let's go ahead and put in these flams. I'm gonna, let's just put in a bunch of eighth notes. And then I will, make this one a flam, and 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 we're gonna accent on these downbeats. The way I'm placing these accents is I'm in the articulation tool and I'm holding the letter A and then placing the accents. So that's the exercise, but I want to be specific with this exercise. I want to make sure that whoever's doing this exercise knows what the sticking is. And the way that I input sticking is I actually use the lyric tool. You could use the text tool, but the problem with the text tool is if I put in my sticking, let's say this is the sticking, right, left, and I want to copy this exercise over, the sticking doesn't come with it. That's no good. We don't want that. So we're going to go to the lyric tool and we're going to make this okay. So these lyrics are pretty small, so I'm actually going to change the size of my font. Let's go to document options. Let's go down to the fonts. Let's go to the lyrics for the verse, and let's actually set this to, let's see if 16 is a little better. So I like size 14, but now for these flams, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each flam, and I'm actually going to select the flammed sticking, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift and then the comma, and I'm going to downsize. I'm going to downsize each flam note. So now what we have is something that looks a little easier to read on the eye. So that's exercise 1. It's looking pretty good. What I want to do is I want to add exercise numbers. So I'm going to go to the expression tool. I'm going to right click. I'm going to double click there and I'm going to go to rehearsal marks. And you'll see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's put that right there. Now, the benefit and the reason that I use these rehearsal marks is, again, if I copy this over here, you can see this number automatically changes. I like that. So that's why I use those rehearsal numbers. That's the first exercise. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. Let me show you another trick. So at the very top of my document, I'm going to put a series of I's. Because we're using handwritten font, they're a little slanted, but that's okay. Then I'm gonna hold Control-Shift and hit the apostrophe mark, and it's gonna center it. Then I'm gonna move this all the way up to the very top of the page. And then I'm gonna right-click it and unclick Show, which is gonna hide it. And then I'm going to edit attributes and put this on all pages. And now what I have is when I go to print this document, this is not going to show up on every page. But what I have now is I have little markings to be able to center stuff on the page. So now I can go to my measure tool and I can drag this over to the second line there. And I can drag this over to the second line there. And now my measures are more uniformly spaced. And they're going to be nice and even throughout the whole document. So on all my templates that I personally use, I always have these kind of hash marks at the top because it allows you to kind of get cleaner placement of stuff as you start adding measures and things like that. So that's there, but when you go to print it, you're not going to see those markings. And that's, just a nice thing to kind of have there hovering in all your documents. So that's the first exercise. Let's go on to the second exercise, which we're actually going to put repeat marks on. So I'm going to double click once with the repeat sign, hit enter, gets repeat signs at the beginning. I'm going to go back, put a repeat sign there. And now I want to remind whoever's doing this exercise that this exercise is still in 4:4. So I'm going to select the measure tool, double click, and then I'm going to time signature, always show. Now we have a time signature so that someone knows it's there. And now what I'm going to do is let's make a drag rudiment. Because I kind of flew through on the flam, I kind of flew through placing those flams. Let's just get some eighth notes going here. And if I want to put a drag or a flam, what I'll do is I'll go to the 16th note and I'll hit Control G for grace note. And I will just double click before wherever I want this drag. If I put two of them there, there are two of them there. If I put one of them there, there's one of them there. And now my drags are all placed. And I mean, you can go through and you can select the first drag note in front and you can hit the letter T. And that will tie them. So if I want to flip the direction of that tie, because I obviously don't love how it's sitting right there, I can hit Control F and it flips the direction of the tie. So now I have those placed. Let's go through and add our sticking for them. And then again, let's go back and for all of these grace notes, let's hold Control Shift and then the comma to make these notes smaller. You can see I hit escape, I'm out of that tool, but the bottom of the staff is still a little screwed up. That happens sometimes. You can hit Control U and that updates your layout and now you can see that they look good. So we have our first two exercises. Let's go ahead and add the rehearsal mark on this one. And let's make sure that it lines up with the other one. And let's get this situated over here like this. All right, so now we have our first two exercises. Those are looking good. I want to show you another little trick that I do sometimes. If I have exercises where, especially for drums, there's going to be, maybe in the hands, the hi-hat and the snare drum are doing the same thing for the whole exercise, but the foot pattern changes throughout it. I want to show you how to quickly do that because that kind of stuff can be really, really tedious if if you do it a certain way. So let's make our hi-hat pattern. Let's do that. And by the way, as I'm going through, what I'm doing is I'm selecting with the numbers on the main keyboard, I'm selecting what note value I want. 3 is 16th note, 4 is 8th note, 5 is quarter note. I'm going through, selecting with that, and then I am placing, I'm hitting enter to place that note. So let's go ahead. What am I doing? Let's put snare drum on 2. Let's put snare drum on 2, snare drum on 2 and 4. We're going to put accent there so people know that they should accent. So this is going to be the hand pattern that repeats over and over again. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the measure tool, copy this measure by hitting Control C, and then I'm just going to copy it a couple times. And then again, I'm going to add a solid bar line here in this last measure so that we know like this is the whole exercise. Now that I'm getting more measures on the page, I want to make sure that there's enough space for everything. And I want to kind of separate. These are a little close. I want to scoot this up. So I'm doing that with this tool here, the page layout tool. You can move these around as you will. And you might see that as I add notation, sometimes, you know, this measure adjustment we did to create space and stuff, sometimes that gets messed up. I make the layout of where everything is spaced and how the measures, like the size of the measures, I make that the very last thing that I do because that's something that as you add notes sometimes can get jumbled. I want to space these out a little bit more, get these going down here. Okay, so now I need to add my foot pattern. So now I'm going to go back to the symbol entry tool and I'm going to go to layer 2. What layer 2 is going to do is it's going to do a stem down kick drum pattern for each of these measures so that I don't affect all of the copy and paste stuff that I just did. So I'm going to go to Shift Alt 2. Now I'm in layer 2 and I'm going to we're going to make it this little grid where, you know, you're playing all the 8th notes. And then you're playing the 16th notes. And by the way, if you're in simple entry and you want to put a rest for the note value you're selected on, so 16th note rest, you can hold Shift and Enter and it puts a rest, and then you can hit Enter and it just places the note. And then let's do... So we have that all out there. I'm going to place our rehearsal number so that we know which exercise if we ever need to refer to it. And then now I can kind of move these closer together, move this up. So we have our exercises here. Let's do one more row of exercises to get a little bit crazier with the placement. So let's put 3 exercises on one line. So we're going to need the 3 measures for the exercises, and then we're going to need 2 blank measures that go as spacers in between. So I'm going to select all these measures and hit 5. That's going to put 5 measures on one line. And I'm going to go to my staff tool, select this one, hit H for hide, and then I'm going to right click this bar line, make it solid. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy and paste. So now all of these have the solid bar line. You can even get fancy and you can go to the rehearsal mark and copy over that. And now you're formatted for all of the exercises you're about to place. Let's get a little crazy here. Let's go to the time signature, right click, and let's make this one in 2/4. Let's make this one in 5/4, and let's make this one in 7/8. And you'll see when I did that, we got a little, we don't need this cautionary time signature mark here because these are exercises. No one's really going to be sight reading from measure to measure. So we just want to turn that off for everything. So let's, again, select a measure in the measure tool, hit Control A to select all of them, double click, and let's go to hide cautionary clefs, key signatures, and time signatures. Click it as a check mark. So now that's hidden. Very good. These time signatures are showing. So for this one, this is going to be, for some reason, it's going to be that. And okay, so here's something interesting. Oh, I'm in layer 2. That's why. All the stems were going down. So I want to actually get out of layer 2 and go back to layer 1 because layer 1, I have all the stems frozen up. And that way, you know, that's how most notation is written. If you go to document options, and you go to layers, you can go to layer 1 and freeze stems and ties up, and that will freeze all of them up. So I want to go here, go to layer 1 with Alt-Shift-1, and then I want to input, and I put those tuplets there by hitting Control-9. That selects your tuplet tool right down here. Then you can place them and then toggle it off with Control-9. Right, left, left, right, right, left, right. And then let's actually make this where you take a different sticking on the repeat. So let's add some stickings here. And I'm gonna go to the lyric tool, select that first line, and then hit the down arrow. And now I'm on the next line. So I'm gonna left, right, left, right, right, left, left. And you can see these lyrics are all kind of a little weird. I found in Finale, if you don't change the font size for your lyric before you start placing them, the formatting can get a little strange. But here's all we need to do is we can go to lyrics, we can open the lyric window, and I can select all of these and select size. Actually, I'm just gonna go to these that I can see are smaller. I'm gonna go to size. We're gonna go to 14. And that changes them. And then I can go to verse 2. These are 16. I'm gonna go to size 14. And now those are resized. Now I'm gonna go to the second line, and this second line is a little far away from the first line. So I'm actually gonna go to this third arrow here, and I'm gonna drag up, and that will globally drag up all of the stickings across the page. So now we have this beautiful exercise, and I actually want to add a note for the performer to alternate stickings on repeat. So I'm gonna go to this section here, and I'm gonna duplicate one of these random things, and I'm gonna go reverse sticking on repeat. And I'm gonna uncheck this use technique text font, and I'm gonna go down to, let's go down to 10-point font. Let's go even smaller than that. Let's go 8. There we go. And again, I did that in the expression tool because that way, if I copy and paste this somewhere else, it takes the text with it. If I use the text tool, it's not gonna do that, and it's gonna be sad. So I'm actually gonna put that down here. And now you can see that exercise is done. Let's go back to, let's go to this 5-4-1, and we're gonna make this a bell pattern. So I'm just gonna add, maybe what I'd. So I was trying to add a kick drum note in between this ride cymbal and this ride cymbal, and Finale wasn't liking it. So sometimes when that happens, you can actually zoom way in, and it lets you get a little more space in between there, and you can kind of sneak that note in there. So now you have that exercise. I don't know how good it is, but this is just for example's sake. And I actually want to add a snare drum accent for all of these snare drums, but I want to add it in the middle of the staff because I want the performer to know, don't accent the ride cymbal, just accent the snare drum. But you'll see it's kind of jumping from the top of the staff to the bottom. We don't want that. So right click the accent and hit edit articulation definition. And I'm gonna unclick always place outside of staff, and then I'm gonna hit OK. And now I should be able to highlight all of these and drag them into the center of the staff. And that is nice and neat, just like I wanted it. And then the last thing we're gonna do is, let's just make this a hand, foot. We're just gonna make that a hand, foot exercise. And I wanna change how these bar lines are broken up. So I'm actually gonna go to this note here, and I'm gonna hit the / button to separate it. And that's how I'm gonna divide that up. Now, would I actually do that in real life? I don't know, maybe not. But we're doing it for these exercises. So now you have that exercise. I'm gonna zoom out using the Control- button. So now we have all of these exercises. And now that I've zoomed out, I'm actually gonna move this note over a little bit. I'm actually gonna move it up to the top. That might make it a little more legible. It looks a little confusing down below the staff. So now what I wanna do is I wanna delete all these extra measures. So I'm gonna go to my measure tool, select this one, Go all the way to the end of the document, hold Shift and click, then hit delete. That deleted all those extra measures. And now I'm going to finalize the formatting. Like I said, I save this until the very end because as I add notes, sometimes that kind of changes the stuff I've already formatted. So I am going to kind of get the line placement correct. And we're not hurting for space, so I'm really going to space these out. Otherwise, it'll look a little strange. And now I'm going to get my measure placement straight. So I'm going to go here, move this to the second line, move this to the second line. And then for these 3 down here, let's see what makes sense. Okay, I'm actually going to add some more spacers up here. I like to make sure there's an odd number of lines up here so that the line in the middle is always in the center. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now I'm going to make sure that that's still center by Control Shift apostrophe. Yes, that's still center. So now I'm going to go down. And let's place this one on the very edge. And we'll place this one on the very edge. And then this text is really just giving me grief. So I'm actually going to do something with that text in a second because it's just in the way. So now I'm going to move that one over to the 3rd line in. 3rd line in. So now those are all spaced out nice and even. And for this free floating text down here, that's just kind of too much to cram into one line. I'm going to add this note down here. You can see if I put it over top of, if I attach it to the hidden measure, it obviously hides the text. So you could put this at the very front of it, but I'm going to put it at the end of it. And then I'm going to go to my Smart Shape tool. I'm going to grab this dotted line. And I'm going to double click and point it there just so that we know exactly where that's located. And even when I zoom out, that line is drawing my eye to it. So that is the exercises on the sheet music. We got flams in there. We got drags in there. We have a whole drum set thing that we made really quick because we copy and pasted and then added the feet later. And then we have all kinds of spacing tips with, making our hash marks at the top, all stuff like that. So hopefully this helped you. If you have any questions at all, put them below in the comments. We've been reading through those. Part 6 of this series, we actually answered a ton of those questions. And this video is a response to a question one of you asked. So if you have questions, put them in the comments. I want to answer as many as I can. Again, you can download the template for this document in the description below. And if you want to see me making that template, you can go back to part 1 of this series. But that's it for me today. This is how I make drum exercise notation sheets in Finale. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.